Hello, and welcome to another video in the MB Sports Web Tournament Module Training Series. In this video, we're going to talk about managing schedules. So to manage schedules, the first thing we're going to need to do is assign teams to the divisions that they belong, and we're going to showcase how to do that manually or by using the team import function. Then we're going to show how to create games manually, and those games can either be crossover games or placeholder games. We'll showcase those. Then we'll show how to import a game schedule from an Excel file. We'll demonstrate how to delete games either individually or in bulk. And then once the schedule is loaded, we're going to quickly show some of the way that the general public and tournament administrators can view the round robin tables that are generated by hovering over certain games and showing more information. We'll quickly show the venue utilization report and the check for issues report that are available once the games have been loaded into the system. So back in the MB Sports Web demo site, we're continuing on from the previous video where we went through the tournament setup area of the tournament admin module. And what we've done is we've also added a sample group here with a round robin and a championship division. And within that group, we've added 5 teams. So if we're creating a tournament from scratch, one of the things that you might want to do or need to do when we go into the manage schedules area for our sample group is to tell the system which teams are in the divisions that we're going to be scheduling games for. Now in this sample group we only have 5 teams in a single round robin division. So in this case every single team is going to be added to that one round robin division. However, in a larger division such as maybe this novice one where there's multiple divisions, we're going to be saying for each of these divisions there's only 5 teams out of the 20 available that are in each of these round robin pools. Now, when it comes time to advancing teams from round robin to the championships, this process will need to be taken place using the website and using this assign teams button. So back to the sample group to show how to assign teams to their divisions. Click the assign teams button and it's going to load up the form and ask you which division you want to assign teams to. So in this case we want round robin. We can look at the teams that are in the group that are not yet in the division, and we can select them and click the arrows to move them over if we want to move them over individually, or the double arrow that moves all the teams over all at once. Click update and now we'll have our little round robin bracket showing with the no games in the schedule yet, but the teams now have been added to that round robin division. And again, once the scores have come in, if a team has advanced to the championship, because only typically the top 4 will advance to the championship division, you're going to go to assign teams to division again, choose the championships division, and then choose the 4 teams that have advanced to that championships. We'll go over that in a little bit more detail once we cover managing scores in a future video. Now if you're using the import function for your teams, you may remember that one of the things that you can do when you're importing your teams is to assign them to a division in your import right away. Our import that we did in the last video did actually have a division assigned for each of the teams that were uploaded. So if you look in the manage schedules area for all these other divisions, the teams have been added to their respective divisions already. So now we're going to cover off how to schedule the games. Now if you want to schedule the games one at a time manually, that's fairly easy to do. We click add game and the form asks what division the game is going to belong to. So in this case it's going to be the round robin. You can enter a game number if you'd like, it's optional, but you can enter a game number. So maybe we'll call it SG for sample group 1, and then the date and time. So choose the calendar to choose the date, and you'll be restricted to the start and end date for the tournament and whatever the time is. Now if the time is not on 15-minute increments, then that's fine. We can use this +5 or -5 buttons to nudge the time by 5 minutes. So if we want to go to 4:25 for this game start, we can certainly do that. We can choose the venue. So whatever venue we've selected, a preview of what's happening on that venue on that day will show up in that venue preview area. The home team for the game and the visiting team. So this will actually give you a preview of what's been scheduled for those teams throughout the entire tournament, and this is the first game, so no games have been found. Now in addition, if you've got a scenario where the divisions are crossing over, then what you would do is choose the division that the home team belongs to, and then check this crossover option, which would then allow you to select teams in another division. Now, in this case, there are no other divisions that have teams in them, so it's prompting us to use a label for this team. Now, on that note, if this is a semifinal or a final game, and we're setting the schedule up and we don't know who's going to be playing those games yet, we can certainly choose a championships division, and because it doesn't have any teams, it's going to ask you just to type in the label of who's going to be playing that game. So we can say that it's first place versus fourth place, and add the game that way. That works just fine. Now, when the first place and fourth place teams are known, we're going to come back to this manage schedules area and update the game, uncheck that label box, and place it with the actual team. Scores cannot be posted for games as long as they're using labels. So these labels are meant to communicate what the schedule is in advance of the tournament, and as the tournament is ongoing, these games will get updated with the actual team information. So let's go back and schedule a game between these two teams in the round robin, and we'll do insert and add another, and we'll do another game a little later on between team orange and team red, and we'll do insert and close. So as we're building up the schedule, it's showing that these four teams, we now have game one in our matrix of the round robin, and down below it's showing the entire group schedule. So each of these games down below, we can double click on those games if we need to make a change to them. So if we need to make this one start at 4:45 instead of 4:25, make that change and click update, and that will make that change. This game here, we forgot to change the game number, so we just edit that and make that SG2 and update that. Now, if you need to get rid of the schedule, if you need to redo the entire group, or if you need to change individual games, if you hover over the games, the trash can icon will appear, and click the trash can. It'll ask, "Are you sure?" You hit yes to delete the game, or cancel will not delete the game. Or we have this delete games option, which will give us all of the groups or all the games within the group, and we can check off which games we want to delete, or you can check the box in the top row to delete all the games. So we'll go ahead and delete all those games. It'll ask, "Are we sure?" again, hit OK. Now it's deleted all the games for that particular group. Now, in a large tournament, you might have your schedule already done in Excel. So if you want to import your schedule, you can certainly do that. That is also done within the Manage Schedules area. If we go down to this Import Games option, it will give us the expected file format again. So the group, division, the game number, date, time, visitor, home, and the venue. Now, the names of the venue must match either the full name of the venue or the venue abbreviation. If in the case of the abbreviations, make sure that each venue abbreviation is unique so that it can find a single match so it knows which venue to assign this game to. Similarly with the home and the visitor team names, this can be just the city unless there happens to be more than one team in that group from the same city. So for example, if there is the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Toronto Marlboros, you'll need to specify the full name of those teams within the visitor or home column so that the site knows which team you're talking about. The date needs to be formatted as a date in Excel. As long as Excel is recognizing that as a date, it should work. But we do recommend that you format the date to it be the day dash the three letter month name dash the year, and the time should be formatted as shown on the screen. There's also additional instructions that show up on this page that indicates what's going on. So we have this schedule already ready to go, so it can be imported. There's 248 games in this tournament. So we have the columns already aligned, so group, division, game number, date, time, venue. It doesn't matter what order these columns appear in. What does matter is that the names of the column headings are exactly matching what the site is expecting. So game number with the pound sign, date, time, visitor. Now we also want to make sure that this is saved as an Excel 97 to 2003 format. So depending on which version of Excel you're using, this will look slightly different, but essentially you always want to use this save as and then choose your location. And in this save as box, the save as type might be set to Excel workbook. That is a default in newer versions of Excel. So you want to make sure you've changed that to be the Excel 97 to 2003 workbook, so that the file itself will have a .xls extension rather than a .xlsx extension. So we've got this file ready to go. So all we got to do now is click Browse and find that file. This page also has validation mode to test the information that's in the file. We've already tested this previously, so I'm going to uncheck that. And it also has options to update the existing schedule if the game number in the group or division match. So if you had done an upload previously and you've made some changes to it, you usually would want to leave that checked so that your changes in the Excel file would be updated into the website. Go ahead and click Import. And it shows us that 248 games were added. So now we can review these schedules by going into each of the individual groups, and now we can verify that for novice, as an example, all 5 teams have 4 games scheduled in the round robin, and down below we have the entire group schedule. Now just to point out, the round robin matrix, these games, if we hover over them, it gives us more information. So we can see that for the Brampton team, their game 1 is Friday at 8 o'clock, and it's at Whitby, and game 2 is Friday at 12:30, and it is versus Lauren Park. So this information is actually available to the general public as well. And if you're giving tips for the managers or the coaches on how to look at the site, then they can certainly look at each team and hover over that information to see more details. As the scores come in, the date or the day and the time of the game will be replaced by the actual score, which again you'll be able to hover over and to see the details of who the opponent was and when the game was. So on the public side, the tournament groups, once we've got our groups in there, we have a flyout that shows up automatically. We can go to any of the groups in the site. And this gives the same view to the general public. This is typically what you'd want to see if I'm in the novice group, is the schedule for the entire group. However, if I do want to see the schedule for just a single division, perhaps I'm Brampton and I want to see just the games that are within Division A, I can click on that division and I can see just the games within the division. Or if I want to see just my team schedule, I can always click on the team itself and I can look at the schedule for just the Brampton team. So that's just a few quick tips that you can use when looking at the schedule on the website. Back in the control panel, now that we do have a schedule, we'll just quickly look at this venue utilization page, which will allow us just to verify that there's been no overlaps created for our venue or for our venues in the schedules. So it'll default to either the first day of the schedule if we're looking at the tournament upcoming. This happens to be recorded after these games have taken place, so it defaulted to the last day of the tournament. But this page, if there were any duplicate or any conflicts on any of the venues, they would show up in orange on the page, and we can then take these games and double click on them and adjust them as we need to as well. So that is a quick way to make sure that you've not made any issues with your venues. Now there's gaps showing here because we've not set the game length or the game duration for the divisions. It's defaulting to the default of 60, so that's why we want to make sure that as was described in an earlier video, that you've set the game lengths for each of your divisions so that if there are any gaps or any overlaps, it would be reflected correctly on your venue utilization page. And the other page we'll quickly show off is this check for issues report. So this will look at each of the teams in the schedule and look at all the games that they've been scheduled for. And it's going to look for two things. It'll look for a team playing a unique set of opponents. So basically looking or double checking to make sure that the same team is not playing the same opponent twice. This would typically be the scenario if you're setting up your tournament before it starts, that each team is going to be playing unique opponents. So if there was a team that had an issue, they would be highlighted in yellow and the opponent would be highlighted in red. The other thing it's checking for is the minimum time in between games, or the rest between column. And this is looking at the number of minutes from the end time of a game to the start time of their next game. So this Oshawa Meyer Generals team, they have 4 games. The division has a minimum rest set of 180 minutes, or 3 hours. And it's saying that in between the first game between Burlington and the second game of Ajax Pickering, there's 150 minutes in between the end time for the first game and the start time for the second game. So in this case, it's novice. That's probably not a big deal. But if you do want to make sure that you've spaced out the games with enough rest in between those games, then this page will help identify any potential issues that exist with your schedule.